We are in the home stretch for the newest Futurama season. This week was another episode that seemed to have some fearful anticipation from fans, mostly because of the title, Zapp Gets Cancelled. A recurring theme from fans this year is fear of dreaded topicality. But how did Futurama handle the cancel culture debate? Should the show itself have stayed canceled? Let's dive into Futurama's latest. And also, if you want more Futurama analysis outside of this breakdown, make sure to check out my podcast, Cartoons That Curse. Junific Tariq and I have covered the entire series, including most of the newest episodes, and we'll be covering the rest of the season weekly, episode by episode, though we are a couple behind right now, but we will catch up, never fear. Go check it out. Subscribe. But first, I want to thank today's video sponsor, Exter. Exter not only created the world's first trackable wallet, but now they're on a mission to upgrade all of your carry essentials. I got this gorgeous Parliament wallet, and it is the coolest wallet I have ever owned. It's super slim, but still has room to fit up to 12 cards and cash. But coolest of all, it's got this button for quick card access. No more fumbling around for my ID in front of the bar. They also sent me this solar-powered tracking device that lets me track my wallet's location from my phone. This stuff is truly next level. I partnered with Exter to give you an exclusive discount. Get up to 25% off by clicking my link in the description or coupon code Cellos. That's 25% off your order with my link or code. Check out Exter today. So, fortunately, despite maybe a few too many modern buzzwords, Zapp Gets Cancelled mostly told a solid Brannigan story that aligns with a lot of the character's history in the show. It feels like a spiritual successor to Brannigan Begin Again, with a nice Star Trek-inspired subplot. Speaking of, it basically opens up with Zapp, Kif, and the Nimbus smack dab in the middle of a classic Trek-style conflict. I also really like this now-running Stardate gag for Zapp.
Captain's log, Stardate, National Donut Day.
Though I still don't think any of them beats the one in Beast with a Billion Backs.
Captain's log, Stardate, the year of the tiger.
I really hope they keep this gag going though. But obviously Futurama's writers are huge Trekkies, and while Zapp has always been their Shatner and Dupe has always been their Federation, it's weird that we haven't gotten too many more direct Trek-style scenarios. I enjoyed seeing one here, with Zapp taking forever to think about the absolute most obvious solution to stop a fire-based enemy, water. I wonder if these fire beings are supposed to be from the sun like the ones from the Inhuman Torch? They're really similar, though the evil one was small and blue, while the Mystic Alderman had a more similar body type to this one, but they were orange. I don't know, it feels like they could have tied those together if they wanted. But there are two main focuses in this episode, and both are pretty strong through lines in the series. Zapp being very incompetent in a ridiculously rewarding and privileged position, and Leela being very competent in a not particularly rewarding position. So the stories act as nice counterpoints to one another. Zapp just has a ridiculously long list of embarrassing failures in his line of duty. Brannigan Begin Again obviously dealt with one of those directly, but since then there have been countless others. Having him reckon with his terrible behavior as a captain is a strong idea for an episode.
Captain Brannigan, Lieutenant Croker has made some serious, though somewhat amusing, allegations.
Leela has always been overqualified at Planet Express, and we even see her start to move forward with career changes in episodes like Overclockwise.
Thanks, everybody. It's a dream come true. A recurring dream that I can't wake up from.
So Zapp losing his job due to his incompetence and Leela then being given a chance to replace him is a pretty great intersection of long-running aspects of the show. As far as Zapp's cancellation goes, the inciting incident feels like classic Zapp, truly in line with what we've seen from him since as far back as season 1.
He took a public shower and used me to scrub his armpit.
I think personally I didn't need the more modern buzzwords thrown around. Not that I object to them in general, it's just the kind of stuff that does make you really feel like you know exactly when the episode was written.
He insisted on telling me his fantasies about my wife.
That was just locker room talk.
I feel like Zapp's behavior throughout the series sort of speaks for itself. Using these examples that have such specific modern real-world parallels feels a little unnecessary. Telling Kif his fantasies about Amy, yeah, that feels super like Zapp, but did we need the locker room talk line? I guess that's just a personal taste thing. Gotta say I loved the Hyper Chicken finding his own client guilty. That's good stuff. Nice to get some Hyper Chicken action in this episode. Okay, I didn't actually watch it, but also apparently the Clone High reboot canceled a character with a big red C before Futurama did. Poor Abe Lincoln. But I really loved the concept of Zapp's sensitivity training, that the instructor Dr. Kind puts them all on a simulated mission, acting as their abusive captain and giving them a taste of their own medicine. That's pretty creative.
This mission may be simulated, but my abuse will be very real.
Leela taking Fry and Bender with her to help pilot the Nimbus made for a really fun other half of the episode as well, and shots like this, where we see the entire crew of the Nimbus, really put Zapp's gig into perspective, and the Trek-style conundrum she's put in is again such a great counter-story to Zapp's cancellation. Star Trek is so much about solving intergalactic socio-political issues in drastically different cultures, so it was so smart of them to make Leela's first task take place on a planet where they basically grope as a form of communication.
Captain, respect their customs. We need to win the hearts and nods of these people.
It's just a really funny juxtaposition to the entire Zapp storyline. I feel like the design of the Tactilians were maybe a little basic for my taste, but I loved the backgrounds and color palette of the planet itself. It does feel like this latest season has been lacking in new planetary locations. While we've had a few here and there, it's largely been very Earth-focused, so this was a nice change. I also appreciated that this episode actually gave us a bit more insight into Dupe itself. While it had previously been described as like the Federation in Star Trek, this episode makes it pretty clear that Dupe very heavily pursues its own self-interests. The leader suggested they're trying out more peaceful forms of diplomacy instead of war. But even so, they still press Leela to trick the Tactilians into signing over their natural resources for their own gain. Now, this aspect of the story did sort of fall by the wayside towards the end of the episode, but I think it's a pretty great conflict for Leela and pretty interesting from a world-building perspective.
Leela, sometimes we coerce people with war. Other times, we take the high road and trick them with peace.
I had always assumed that Zapp was a more isolated example in the Dupe organization, that his behavior was an outlier. We'd seen him make these terrible and unethical decisions before. Love's Labor's Lost in Space describes him sacrificing countless waves of his own men until the killbots hit their limit and turn off. 300 Big Boys shows all of the treasure that he pillaged from another species. Into the Wild Green Yonder shows him dangerously sacrificing a huge number of men in a high-speed pursuit. Zapp Dingbat shows him try to trick another species into declaring war on Dupe without realizing it so they can destroy them with no repercussions. But this episode sort of recontextualizes a lot of these things as just how Dupe tends to operate. It makes Zapp's role in Dupe make more sense.
Our captain will gladly engage in the nobbling.
And of course, the big twist that Dr. Kind was actually grifting the sensitivity trainees, and the simulation itself was real as he pursued his own anti-Dupe vendetta. He basically threatens to destroy the natural resources of the planet with a Durian. So this at least sets up another Star Trek-style moral dilemma for Leela, even though it's sort of a separate one from what was set up earlier. She can have the Nimbus fire on Kind and stop him, but risk the Tactilians in the process.
He's surrounded by those poor, innocent pervs. They might get hurt.
I did enjoy the whole roundabout way they got rid of Kind, promoting him to captain and having him fire on himself. The shot of the blast was really cool. But I think my biggest disappointment here is that Leela actually does save and secure the air supply resources for Dupe, even though that was definitely a super morally questionable thing to do, earning her a Medal of Valor.
It's pronounced velour.
And her refusal to risk the lives of the Tactilians also ends up getting her discharged. So she basically helped steal a bunch of natural resources for Dupe and didn't even get to keep her job. Kind of a bummer. But despite the slight misfire with the natural resources aspect of the story, it's fitting that Leela followed her gut in an attempt to help innocent people. Pretty excellent and on-point Leela characterization, and it leads to this great moment, one of my favorites of the season for sure.
I guess I just don't have what it takes to be a Dupe captain.
No, you have something better. You have what it takes to be Leela.
Love it. And getting that big smile out of her to replace her sad Employee of the Month photo, just a really nice capper to the episode. I love how they've been giving us these nice Fry and Leela moments like this within other stories and narratives. Big fan of moments like this one.
P.S. Fry looks cute.
And honestly, she's right. Leela, Fry, and Bender all look great in these Dupe uniforms. I especially love Bender's. So overall, this was a pretty solid episode. It did have a bit of on-the-nose terminology that feels like it could age poorly, but nothing too egregious. It was a pretty creative narrative that built on the characterizations of Leela and Zapp really effectively, and shed a lot of light on the nature of Dupe in general. I loved the Star Trek-esque nature of the dilemma, and honestly would enjoy seeing even more blatantly Star Trek vibes from Zapp or Dupe. Does Dupe only have one starship like the Nimbus? They should bring in another ship and another design. Maybe give Zapp an inferiority storyline when a bigger and better ship comes on the scene. Before I go, I also want to once again shout out the writers and actors strikes. Please show your support for the creatives who make these shows possible. I'll be posting a link in the description for resources that can help support these striking workers. And I still want to hear what you think about the latest Futurama episode and the new season in general. Was Zapp Gets Cancelled a cancelable offense, or were they right to once again uncancel this seemingly uncancelable unforgettable show. Cancel blowing the cancels. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.